Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 21. Today we have a great guest. We have Avery Jenkins, the 2009 world champion. He's into course designing these days, and he's doing a lot of cool things in disc golf. So we're going to talk to him all about that, as well as his playing days. So let's hop right into it. All right, we welcome into the show now our guest. We have 2009 world champion Avery Jenkins. So thanks so much for joining the show, Avery.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on to more of your current things that you're doing, I want to start with your playing career because that's certainly where you gained your notoriety in the sport. Um, you had a long touring career during your prime, during the legendary era of like Nate Doss, Ken Climo, all those big names like that. What was it like trying to consistently break through for wins when so many of the dominant figures in our sports history were out on tour?
It was tough. It was, we were definitely the kind of veteran touring players, but there's a lot of players that came before us. Even there's like the Dan Green. There's a lot of just notable players. I'm gonna think the Dan Ginley. I was gonna say, or the David Greenwell, or Scott Stokely. There's a lot of notable players. Mike Randolph was a touring player early on. Ron Russell, Brad Hammock.
Oh yeah.
Like there's just names upon names that were veterans even before we jumped on the road. So to answer your question, it was tough. It was really tough to hold your own and play against some of the greatest to ever play the game. With multiple world titles, USDGC title, major wins. And it wasn't always one person besides Climo, but it wasn't always one person winning every weekend. It kind of definitely got spread around a little bit. But it was just a different time. It was a different era, and being a young buck on tour, it was a lot of fun and learned a lot and got to experience disc golf at the very grassroots level. And it's cool to see where it's definitely expanded to over the last 5 to 10.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in 2009, you were able to break through and you claimed that world title after a tough playoff with Josh Anton. Going into that playoff, I saw this when I was researching that you were previously 0-4 at playoffs with national tours and majors. Was that in your mind at all as you were trying to win that world title?
Damn, I didn't even know that stat right now. I can think
Yeah.
about two playoffs that I lost, one for a major, another one for a big NT, and those are both against Rico. So kind of crazy. And then Josh, Anton, and Rico being best friends, it kind of just works out that way. The other one being a playoff with Nate Doss and Dave Feldberg at Beaver State Fling. So there's your three at least. No, I didn't think about that. It's a world championship. It's the world title on the line. Do stats mean anything? No, everything on paper is past. It's all about the present and what's going to go down. And I didn't think about that at all. I just thought about the battle ahead of me and knew whose chance to take it.
Right. Is it fair to say that that's the most pressure you've ever felt in your career?
Yeah, yeah. There's just more on the line. A B tier win, an A tier win, a national tour at that time. They're big tournaments, but a major is a major, and the world championship is the biggest of those majors.
Absolutely. How much did winning that world title open doors for you in disc golf? And do you think it carries the same weight today as it did back then?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt it springboarded me into just kind of a legendary status within disc golf. There's no doubt about it. It's opened the doors and given me so much more opportunity within the business of disc golf. Working for Discmania as a team manager, being the sales manager at Disc Golf Park, being able to design courses with the title to throw on there that it's designed by a world champion. That's everything these days. So yes, a world title always had that status, that definitely elite level, and still carries that today. There's a lot of big majors out there. There's the European Open. There still is the USDGC, but the World Championship is a title unlike no other. To be a world champion within the sport is everything.
Definitely. And although you had tons of success out there at tour, what's one title that you wanted the most but you weren't able to win?
USDGC. That's
Yeah.
that next level. To be a US Open, a USDGC champion. I was on the league card in the final round several times. I think I have at least 4 top tens, and in a 3-year period in 2006, 7, and 8, I went fourth, second, second. So pretty outstanding all those years. Those last two when I got second, I got second to Nate Doss and second to Ken Climo. So, you know,
and
Nothing is
company.
nothing to scoff at, but that's against some of the best and playing against the best, and that was definitely one I wanted the most. Besides winning a world title, was a USDGC title.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely understand the prestige behind that event. Moving forward a little bit to your beginning with Discmania. So, how did you first get acquainted with UC, and how did your involvement with Discmania start?
It started with a visit to the European Open in 2006. That's when I really got to know UC more and be more acquainted with him. That's when he started the European Open for the first time. And
Oh
so
yeah.
us as, 5 or 6 Americans traveling over for the European Open, um, it was an experience unlike anything. That was my first trip to Europe. And to go over there and play a major event. The first 2 years they held the 2006 and 2007 was in Epila, just
Mm.
outside of Tampere, in the same area as Nokia. And then every year on from the third and now to the 10th is in Nokia, where they hold the European Open. But me and UC, we met many years ago and hit it off, throughout just a lot of commonality, a lot of similarity, us being professional players in two different regions or areas of the world, and especially countries. We saw each other quite a bit at some of the bigger tournaments, Japan Open, USDGC, World Championships, and him being a phenomenal player, but a mastermind behind disc golf and the growth of it today. So I was very, very fortunate to become friends with him at an early age, and still to this day, just the opportunity of working for a major manufacturer. It's everything.
Yeah, and were you part of Discmania's plans from the beginning to kind of form that partnership, or is it something that UC just kind of brought you along with? How did that kind of start?
So, in the humble beginnings of Discmania, it formed in 2006. And just being friends, but also we were both Innova sponsored players at the time.
Yeah.
He sponsored me under the Discmania Shield in 2011. It was after I won the Asia Open over in Taiwan. And he was really trying to bring Discmania into the US market, was a big part of it. For those that don't know, Innova Champion Discs, huge sponsor of mine for many years. I went 20 years sponsor with them. But at that time, it was Innova US, and then Innova Europe was basically UC Maresma and his whole crew. So that was Innova
Yeah.
Europe. So you had both sides of the pond. But also Discmania and the Discmania brand was part of that Innova Europe conglomerate. And so Innova was making Discmania discs from 2006 all the way till last year in
Hmm.
2021. So carried us for 14 years making our discs at that point, 15 years. And nothing but good times and good things that happened and transpired because of that partnership. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where we came from, was that Innova standard, and grew and kind of almost outgrew some things. So we moved on and creating some amazing things right now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I talked to UC earlier in the year about this a little bit, but as somebody like you who has really deep roots with Innova, was it tough on you at all when the ties kind of had to be split recently?
It was tough, but it's business is business. I'm still friends with so many employees, and so many that are just diehard Innova that have been there for 20 plus years. And there's always Dave Donapace and Sam Ferrens, Mark Molnar. You got the East Coast, you got Jonathan Poole and the whole family over there, Harold Duvall. They're always going to be friends, but within the business of disc golf, we were definitely held back in so many ways. We can only grow and continue to expand, and we are limited by capacity. We are limited by how many discs we had access to, and that's a huge limitation these days. When supply is very limited and demand is through the roof, we need to take the next step and make our own discs.
Yeah, definitely. And I can certainly say it's paid off. One thing I wanted to ask about Discmania, kind of a personal question. So, when Discmania was first bridging over to the US, the Deep in the Game videos came out. And to this day, they are still some of my favorite YouTube videos within the disc golf scene. So, I was wondering, will the Deep in the Game YouTube videos ever make a reappearance?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and it definitely, I think it set the standard for a lot of instructional videos and a lot of instructional content. There's a lot of it out there, and every manufacturer has it at some capacity. Every top pro has his own take on pro tips and such. And it was something that UC and I we collaborated together to produce some of the first content, and obviously creating a series across the board where it's free to the public and available everywhere on YouTube. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. I look back at those. That was 10 years ago. That was 10
Yeah.
years ago to this year that we made those, and it's still relevant information. It's still all very concise, important things, but we try to keep it basic. Um, so that was deep in the game. We did do a whole like series of clinics and tours and travels based on the Deep in the Game brand. That's when I took Simon out in 2014 and we traveled around the Discmania motorhome, still promoting the Deep in the Game series. And we always thought it was great content. Why not share it on the live venues when we went around and did these clinics? And we traveled all over the U.S., all over Europe doing these. And that was Deep in the Game. We always had thoughts about doing deeper into the game or a Deep in the Game
Ooh.
2. And so these were
Okay.
things we've definitely thrown around a little bit, and it might be a good time to break out after 10 years, possibly.
Well, I would certainly push it. I'm ready for it. So I hope it happens. Um, but I want to move on to your current venture with Disc Golf Park. You've been designing courses all over the U.S. and abroad. Your most recent project just finished up in Montenegro in collaboration with the Paul Macbeth Foundation. Talk a little about the course you were able to put in there and how that project went overall.
Yeah, it was a cool opportunity. We've been talking about this for the past like 5 months, trying to plan the adventure and the journey and the opportunity of installing a disc golf course in Montenegro, a country that's former Yugoslavia 30 years ago. It's tucked away in like southern Europe. It's right across the water, east of Italy, is the best way
Mm.
to reference it. It's around Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Albania. Part of the world most people don't know of. A lot of people know Italy. They may know Spain and Portugal, possibly, but where this is located, it's tucked away in the Mediterranean. It's a beautiful place in this world. Montenegro, mountain black mountains. It looks like the interior of Colorado, like you're
Wow.
up in the mountains, surrounded by just majestic, environment, and just the whole scene there is really cool. So actually made the trip over there in May. I just didn't want to be surprised. We ended up dividing this into two different trips. I didn't want to be surprised making a trip there and designing and trying to build and install a course in 1 week.
Yeah.
So I made the trip there in May to scout it out and do the full design. And the whole mission behind the Paul Macbeth Foundation is to offer disc golf courses to underserved communities and regions of the world. In Montenegro, they do not have a disc golf course, and the nearest disc golf course is 500 miles away. So you're definitely dropping it
Wow.
in like a little sweet spot where there's a need for disc golf activity. So I went over there in May, did the full design, marked it, mapped it, and then this previous trip, which was last week, was the full build and install of the course. So what that entails is dropping baskets and installing tee pads and signage and getting the tee signs up and the course map. The plan was to get this course up and running in about 3 to 4 days, but I knew there was going to be some difficulties. I knew there's going
Yeah.
to be some limitations, and I was trying to like maybe stay ahead of the game and maybe try to figure out what that kink in the road was going to be. What's going to stop us from doing this right now? And one of the big factors was machinery, having
Mm.
access to a bobcat or a skid steer, some kind of front end loader that we
Yeah.
can transport materials with. I say materials, I say crushed rock that we use to backfill the wooden frames for the tee pads when we lay the
Sure.
turf on top. So not having a bobcat, we were hand shoveling and transporting wheelbarrows full of crushed rock.
Oh.
And I say we, I say, it was like 8 or 10 of us that went over there. We had some Canadian friends, some friends from the Netherlands. We had some friends from the U.S. being part of the Paul Macbeth Foundation. Paul and Hannah showed up about halfway through the week and lended a hand as well. And it was about 20 to 25 loads of crushed rock per tee pad. Times 18, you're looking at about 360 to 400 loads. And it wasn't
Yeah.
moving rock 50 to 100 feet. It was moving it several hundred feet just to drop it and go get more. And so not having machinery was a huge limitation. It was a lot of manual work. We're hand digging the holes. And we had
Oh
about
man.
14 of them dug before we got there, but it's not just digging into fresh soil, it's digging into dirt and really dense rock, like literally using a pickaxe to dig holes
Oh
for the
man.
baskets, for the tee signs. And so it was just a long, hard week. We never left before it, we never left in the daylight. It was always dark when we left the course and working about 12-hour days. I was getting about 15 miles per day over 5 days. So 75
Wow.
miles walked, and it wasn't just free walking. weighted walking with a wheelbarrow in hand or lugging a basket around the course or something. But I will say it was the most fun I've ever had working that hard. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
I'm not one that's just going to go out there and oversee a thing and watch a project happen and blow a whistle and crack a whip. Like, I'm there to work, and I try not to get outworked is a big part of it. I want to make sure that I'm kind of leading the
Right.
process, and leaving the dirtiest was kind of like my mantra. And it happened. It went in the ground. I was really happy to say everything is complete. There's a couple little details that need to get touched up on with some sand and some rock, but the course is complete. It's playable. It's a small track. It's sub 4,000 feet. So every hole averages about 220 feet, but that's what it needs to be. Like, it's the first course in
Hmm.
the country. It's not so easy and so redundant and monotonous that people are going to get bored with it, but it's not so, so difficult it's going to be intimidating. It's about making a very playable, fun course. And I was like, I'm really, really happy with it. A short course at 18 holes, probably one of my favorites. It's got open, it's
Wow.
got wooded, it's got, uphill, it's got downhill, it's got low ceiling shots. It's got good curves to the right and left. It's got some really cool gaps about 80 feet off the tee pad that you got to hit. Um, so that being said, it's not super easy, but Paul went out there and shot a course record 15 under, and we got that practice round on Jomez. So you guys get a chance to check that out in
Oh,
the
that's
coming
awesome.
months.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I look forward to that. Talking about course design, is that something you've always wanted to do, or is it kind of an opportunity that just kind of popped up in your career that you found a liking for?
I think it's all one the same. It made sense. Everything that I do within the sport of disc golf, being a player, being a touring player, being a traveler, and just being crazy OCD when it comes to like specifics on how things maybe should be. I'm very critical when I play courses. I expect certain things, and I'm trying to bring that level of kind of create a standard. There's a lot of things that could be better, and not to say everything that's been done is not good. It's just that we're progressing. We're being very innovative. We're advancing in the sport, and there's a definitely a need for top professionally designed courses out there. Even at the shorter level, a recreational course or an advanced course still needs to be professionally designed if you want to do it right. There's so many little minimal things that could be done to make a course better, and so many times those little things are kind of overlooked. When I go out there and play, I'm a course collector, and I'd like to go out there and travel and play as many courses as possible. But I'm looking at it kind of like a study program, if you will. I'm trying to figure out what I really like and certain features I like about a disc golf course, and try to implement those into certain designs. And I'm also seeing certain things that I'm trying to avoid, and really trying to think, hey, this
Yeah.
could have been done better. I don't want to do that at my designs because of this, that, and the other. And safety is the top priority of all that. You want to make sure it's a safe, playable, fun course. You're trying to create experience out there. It's not just
Definitely.
about playing out there and going through the motions, but man, birdies are fun. People like getting
Yeah.
birdies. People like hard, tough par threes sometimes and getting that par on those holes. But it's about creating an experience, and that's what I'm trying to do with course design.
That's awesome. Well, one thing I've always wondered is when you're walking a barren property that's set for a course, you're kind of just overseeing everything. You walk in, there's nothing there. Where do you start? It really just seems overwhelming to me.
It is overwhelming. It is. Even for the trained eye, it's supposed to be. There's never been a project I felt you just walk in and it's easy, because I overthink everything. And even when I go out there, there's not just one direction you can take this. You can take it 5 or 6 directions. You know, I always say I have to go in there and walk the property, all the parameters, all the boundary lines. And I say I walk it forward, sideways, backwards, upside down, because I want to see every square inch of that property, because there's an arrangement of holes out there that is the most ideal. I'm
Yep.
not saying the best holes, but you're looking for the best arrangement of holes that all make sense over 9 holes, over 18 holes. What's going to offer you the best experience? What's going to offer you the best variety of shapes and variation of distances? And so, walking it every which way, not trying to get tunnel vision and get stuck on this hole has to be this way or this hole
Mm.
has to be this way. What if we flipped it? What if we took it backwards? What happens if we went sidetracked? What if we have the best hole on this course and we're so dead set on having it, but it sacrifices a hole or two after this? You got to be able to sacrifice that hole possibly to make it a better course entirely. And so
Yeah.
it's A lot goes into it. It is daunting. It is overwhelming. I go out there and I say I just walk around and meditate and just kind of take it all in. Let the course, let the property dictate where the holes are going to go, and it's all about finding those lines.
Yeah, to me, it seems like the hardest thing would be getting to a scenic property, finding that one hole that just sticks out like a sore thumb, like it's got to be the most scenic hole, whether it's throwing off a cliff or whatever it might be, and then trying not to design the rest of the course around that one thing. Like it would be really hard for me to pass it up.
Now, I'm not saying you don't design the rest of the course around it. That might be the signature hole, and you'll find ways to get to and from there. But you got to
Okay.
be willing to sacrifice that hole if it's going to be for the betterment of the rest of the course.
Yeah.
So it's got to be in a certain way where that hole is so iconic and it's going to be the best hole ever. But knowing in your mind where, if it came down to it, you had to sacrifice to make the rest of the course better, you got to be able to do that. So it's tough. I've definitely done it in more than one occasion where you got to sacrifice a hole to make everything better. But the holes are out there. It's about just having the variety and variation is a big part of that. Having the flow, having the navigation, have it all make sense. Not have long walkouts,
Hmm.
not have it where it's so redundant and monotonous with a bunch of string of short holes, long holes, whatever, not stacking a bunch of par fours on each other. There's a lot that goes into it, and once you're done, it's all got to have a good balance and symmetric and visual kind of keys. I was running the crew when I was walking through this course, just all little things I look at and just visually making it very pleasing. Even backing off holes to get a cool visual of the mountain. There was a really cool cathedral on the property in Nisich, Montenegro. And at the Trebessa Disc Golf Course, there's a cathedral, there's mountains, there's really cool trees. And there's a few times where I'm definitely backing up or scooting the basket in a certain position so you have that Instagram moment. You have
Yeah.
the cathedral in the background. It's a calendar shot, and you have it several times where the hole might have been cool if it was longer, but I'd like that basket where you can see everything. Um,
Definitely.
just diving in without ranting too much. Disc golf course design's a passion of mine. I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. I'm so critical, and I'm probably the most critical of anybody out there when it comes to it. But it's definitely what I don't know. It's definitely what separates me from everybody else out there, and I really drawn to creating the best courses out there possible.
Sure. Well, one thing I was wondering then is which locations are kind of on your bucket list to put a course in one day?
Central Park.
Oh, okay. I like it.
You're looking for accessibility. You're looking for visibility. Having a disc golf course there that was safe, and
Yeah.
you'd have tens of thousands, if not millions, of eyes on disc golf in Central Park. So that'd be a dream of mine. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I never even thought of that, but would be the perfect one. Um, so since you're an experienced course designer and you're so passionate about it, we talk a lot about course design in respect to the pro tour and all the choices they're making, having to pivot certain ways based on galleries and whatnot. Um, but when you look at the courses that are being played on tour currently, what's your overall impression?
It's it's awesome. It's better than it's ever been. I'll say that. I come from the old school. We're out there playing a bunch of par 54s every weekend,
Yeah.
and being a longer thrower, being a distance player, I
True.
strive to play longer courses. I know I had an advantage on the longer courses, where you had certain zones you had to hit and playing par fours and fives. I liked the long game and I wanted to progress the sport in that direction because that was the natural elevation of it all. And I remember sitting and talking to Cam Todd back in the day, 2001 world champion, and he was like, "Man, you're gonna regret saying that one day. You're gonna miss playing these par 54 courses, par threes across the board." I'm like, "Man, I don't think I will. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't think I will. That's where golf went. That's where golf went into that direction when you start getting the higher pars, the 65s, the 68s. The dream of a 72, where you have two par threes and two par fives per nine. Man, the courses are just getting longer and players are
Yeah.
throwing farther. And I'm not saying it's a great thing. I think it's a good thing for the entertainment. I think it's a great thing for the competition. But I'm also wondering if players can handle throwing that hard that many times per round. And even with the implementation of the Portland Open last year at Glendoveer, there's a lot of people throwing their arms out because you're throwing
Yeah.
so hard every shot and hard multiple times per hole. But I'm kind of torn. Again, I like where it's going. I think the courses that they're playing now on the Pro Tour are the best they've ever been, and it's good to see that progression and knowing that depending on where you're traveling to, there's different environments of the country, if not the world. You're always going to play a course with a new flavor and a new feel, and it's always going to be different. And having these players that can play in the woods and then play in the open and then having that mix and then travel it over Europe, and play Sula Open and European Open. How do you hang against a European competition and having the Europeans come into the U.S. side? It's amazing to see where the Pro Tour's gone over the last couple of years and where they continue to push the sport forward.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about that mix of courses, one of the pressing issues the tour has to deal with a lot right now is the issue of having to move towards more open courses, both for the gallery reasons and also for the amount of distance that players have been able to achieve. I think kind of an interesting issue going on too is they're looking for ways to protect the hole, right? And they're using more OB and more length. That's kind of been their go-to strategy. Do you think there are any better ways to provide defense for a hole that course designers just really aren't utilizing, or is that kind of all they have to deal with at the moment?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of um, unnatural OB. I don't like stringing off fairways, even
Yeah.
though that's what you got to do in some ways. I'm all about using length, dropping it back 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet to make it a harder hole, more difficult, challenging hole. To implement a bunch of rope and string that's unnatural. I don't mind creeks. I don't mind ponds and streams and using natural fairways or fairway boundaries. But man, I just don't like when they start up putting up posts
Yeah.
and just kind of creating these very unnatural situations. It's very forced. I feel like I do like when they use natural features. I do like when they use trees. Um, a friend of mine brought up the cool idea of how about bringing in using bushes, using more
Yeah.
bushes around greens to protect them or guard them or force certain certain lines or certain areas of the green or forcing certain parts of the basket where you have access on the right side as opposed to the left. Maybe you implementing bushes and growing in natural, foliage around the basket or on the fairways. I would be more down to see like that, and that would obviously take a lot more creativity. That would come down to us, building courses from the ground up, just like they do in golf, creating mounds and
Yeah.
hills and rolling fairways. I think we'll eventually get to that level. I think where we're at now, we're only continuing to grow popularity, visibility. I think eventually, we'll get to that level where we're actually creating courses and sculpting courses and maybe being an architect where we can design in certain ways and have tree placements and bushes and water features where we want them, how we want to see them, and design from scratch essentially.
Definitely. I think an interesting thing is that the idea of wanting these more natural courses is kind of combating with the issue the Pro Tour is having, where they need these private venues to host events because now they're having these huge crowds in. They want to have more control, which is kind of leading them towards using the golf courses or using the few privately owned nice courses we have access to, like the Preserve, Maple Hill. Um, do you think the future of touring courses is are parks going to be phased out completely for these privately owned properties? What do you think that kind of looks like?
You're on point. That's kind of where it's been going all along. As much as we love playing in these like iconic venues that might be parks, like a De La Viega eventually migrated over to the disc golf, over to the golf course for Sunday. So
Yeah.
having the disc golf course component. But Maple Hill's been kind of setting the stage and kind of setting the pace on that for a long time. Having a private venue that you can absolutely control how the course is laid out, how it's implemented, where you have flow of traffic, bringing in concessions, bringing in spectators, setting up banners and flags, and having all that set and locked in where you don't have to take it down every night, at a city park or wherever else you might hold a tournament. It's going in that direction of having private venues at resorts. You think in Smuggler's Notch, having the private venues, having the golf courses. I think we're going that direction for sure, and those are some of the more premium spots that we've have on any tournament location.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one more thing I wanted to ask before I let you go, since you've played all these courses, you consider yourself a course collector. What are your top three courses of all time?
Wow, wow. It's a lot. There's so many good courses out there. There's so many good courses out there, and It's been
Or maybe to make it easy, we could go North America, Europe, and then rest of the world.
makes it more
Pick
difficult.
one
I
Pick one
think.
from each. More difficult? Okay.
I'll tell you top three in Europe right off the bat, and
Okay.
no particular order. But my three favorites. Yarva is my number one favorite of all courses anywhere on the planet. Yarva Disc Golf
Yeah.
Park in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm sure you heard about it. If you haven't
Oh,
played
yeah.
it, go check it out. Second is the beast is Nokia. For a track that's laid out the way it is, with just the good arrangement of distance and accuracy, it's one of the best. And then Konopiste down in Prague. So first off, European Open in Nokia, Finland, and then Konopiste in just outside of Prague, Czech Republic. Phenomenal course. Feels like a golf course, but it's not. There's no OB. It's like Simon's favorite course for the fact that you can just unleash shots with no regard.
Yeah.
And then, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful landscape, rolling hills, castle in the distance. Love it. Those are my top three in Europe. In the U.S., Maple Hills always had, my heart. I love that place. I've won there. I've always enjoyed going there, and it's cool. That's the number one ranked and rated course in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Milo MacGyver. I think what that place
Popular
offers. I lived in Oregon for 7 years, and I've always loved playing there and playing the Beaver State Fling, and knowing that it's still on the tour. I love that still a very important part of what disc golf is at the pro level. And wow, man. I'm just going to throw it out there because it's my favorite, because I won there and I won the world championships there. It's Blue
Yep.
Valley. It's in Kansas City, Missouri. Absolutely love that course. It was definitely before its time. It's a 10,000 foot plus course that has an arrangement of 4s and 5s, rolling hills, big bomber holes. I possibly still hold the course record out there though too, so it's maybe a little biased, but I love it out there. And those are my top three, being Blue Valley, Maple Hill, and then Milo MacGyver.
Well, there you have it. I feel like somebody who's played as many courses as you, everybody listening, you should definitely check those courses out because they're certainly special. But anyways, Avery, thank you so much for joining the show. It was awesome hearing your passion for course design. I think it's a really unique perspective that I haven't really had on this show yet, certainly, and we don't hear a lot about. I think it's just a really curious area. It's something that I want to get into as well. So it was awesome hearing that. Thanks again for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. The courses is more of the hobby these days. Outside the competition, later in the career, collecting courses and traveling around, it's the disc golf adventure. And it's what I think a lot of players are really searching out these days, regardless if they're tournament players or not, is the disc golf destination kind of stuff. Going out there and taking a vacation and trying to go out there and play as many courses as possible. That's fun. So it's been great collecting all these courses all these years. I'm at 1325 at this point.
Wow.
Courses played in 49 states and 23 countries as of last week. And a lot of people say I'm just designing courses so I get to play more of them. So might be true.
Fair enough. All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
All right, and thanks again to Avery for joining the show. It was really cool hearing from a course designer, somebody who's so into the course design and has seen so many different courses, on kind of the perspective of how that all works. I've really always been curious about that process, but it was great for hearing from Avery. Make sure you're here next Thursday. We're going to have another great guest. We have a really good one coming up. You're not going to miss it. We'll see you then.